I'm continuing reading The Great Wheel by Robert Lawson, chapters 3 and 4. Con stood at his bedroom window watching the sun go down over the Palisades. Uncle Michael's flat was high up on the fifth floor, so that the one window of the rear bedroom allowed a western view all the way over to New Jersey. The smoking chimneys of the lower brownstone fronts stretching down the block were sharply silhouetted against the cold December sky. The streets were now engulfed in shadow. At Ninth Avenue, a brightly lighted elevated train rattled by, its busy little engine coughing clouds of blue steam and scattering a trail of bright sparks. He made his way to the bathroom to wash up for dinner. It was a great convenience, surely, the bathroom, with its marble-topped basin and its shiny zinc tub set solidly in varnished matchboarding. Here's a picture. As he turned up the Wellsbach light and listened to its slight pop, he smiled to think how impressed he had been on his first arrival by all this grandeur, which he now took for granted. He certainly had been a greenhorn in those days, only 7 months ago to be sure, but at 18 one can cover a lot of ground in 7 months. It seemed like 7 years in some ways. He still remembered Uncle Michael's loud and hearty greeting at the pier, the more restrained but cordial welcomes of his cousins, Stella and Agnes. Agnes, pretty, impish, and a bit younger than he, was hard put to it to hide her amusement at his appearance. The heavy tweeds and boots from Galway's leading emporium were hardly of New York's latest mode. The curly, copper-colored hair which Aunt Honora had cut only a month ago or so ran somewhat wild over his collar. The almost empty carpet-bag stamped him as an immigrant fresh from the old sod. He was quite bewildered by the noisy bustle and confusion which made Galway's waterfront seem like a sleepy fishing village in comparison. The tinkling bells of the horse cars and the clanging rush of the new cable cars contended with the eager shouts of the cabmen, porters, and hotel runners. Great drays rumbled and jarred on the granite block pavements. Newsboys and boot-blacks shrilled and fought. Uncle Michael shepherded Con and his cousins through the throng to a waiting fringe-topped surrey. It was driven by a heavily mustached, derby-hatted individual, obviously a Giblin Company foreman. Uncle Michael climbed up beside him, and Con sat in the back seat between the girls. A rose between two thorns, Agnes giggled. Over to the avenue, Jim, Uncle Michael ordered, so that the lad can see a bit of the city. As they swung into the stream of traffic on Fifth Avenue, the girls primped a bit and sat up straighter. Uncle Michael lighted a cigar, gave one to Jim, and assumed the role of guide, pointing out the various stores and hotels, the churches, and the palatial homes of the well-to-do. Many of these explanations ended with the proud phrase, pavements, curbing, and drains by the Giblin Contracting Company, Incorporated. We are now approaching the residence of Mr. William K. Vanderbilt, he would announce with a wave of the cigar. Excavation, drains, paving, and curving by the Giblin Contracting Company, or West 34th Street, 1,548 yards of 6-foot brick arch sewer by Giblin Contracting Company. Occasionally his discourse might be varied by a disparaging bit, such as West 41st Street, 800 yards of miserable, slanternly laid 30-inch tile by Reagan and Schmamholtz. A disgrace to the city, the way it clogs and backs up after every moderate heavy dew. Con was filled with awe by the great busy stores, the marble and granite chateaux and palaces, the never-ending stream of glittering carriages with their high-stepping horses. But the awe almost mounted to panic when they finally drew up before the apartment house where the Giblins resided. 7 impressive stories it towered, all of brick and brownstone, its facade tastefully decorated with wrought iron fire escapes. A uniformed doorman helped the young ladies dismount and carried Con's bag into the elevator. An elevator? Con paled a bit and crossed himself surreptitiously. But Uncle Michael and the girls entered the open-grilled cage unconcernedly, and he needs must follow. The operator slid the door closed, heaved on the great rope, and the cage wobbled its way safely to the fifth floor, where Aunt Cecilia greeted him warmly. She was simple and easygoing, like Mother and Aunt Honora and the other village women. Wealth had not spoiled her, but it did have its drawbacks, for with a cook and housemaid to do everything, poor Aunt Cecilia found it hard to keep herself occupied and was putting on weight much too rapidly. The Giblin flat, apartment, Agnes called it, was large and rather floridly furnished. With the four younger girls away at the convent, it seemed almost overlarge. To Con, after the two-room cottage, it was immense. Uncle Michael showed him his room, a small one at the back of the apartment, proudly initiated him in the mysteries of the bathroom, and cautioned him on the dangers of gas lighting. Never turn the flame too low if there's a draft. Careful of the lace curtains. If you smell gas, open the window, but never strike a match. And so forth. Con learned to manipulate the gas and the plumbing quickly and easily. In fact, he learned everything from table manners to the ways of New York traffic quickly and easily. Uncle Michael had been right when he surmised that the blood of the Kilroys and the Giblins would produce a smart young man. But even he was astonished to discover how rapidly his nephew could grasp the details of his contracting business. Within a few short months, Con had familiarized himself with all the forms and uses of brick, tile pipe, stone masonry, and concrete that went into the building of sewers, drains, and paving. He was equally at home with the Mayo men in a deep, shored-up ditch, or with the engineers and draftsmen in the office. His glowing copper hair, roached now in the latest New York fashion, his broad, freckled grin and his eager, youthful friendliness won him friends everywhere. Uncle Michael was delighted. An alderman in 10 years, I'm betting, at the rate he's going, he confided to Aunt Cecilia, and a partner in the Giblin Company in 5. A real Shylock, too, when it comes to driving a bargain. Only today he wheedled a barge load of brick out of one of them up River Dutchman for 10% less than I could have got it. And what's more, he made 'em like it. More and more Uncle Michael grew to depend on his nephew. Con now had a horse and a buggy of his own to visit the various jobs and to drive in Central Park or about town of a Sunday. Often those Sunday rides took him over to the East River shipyard where Martin Brennan worked. Martin was too much in love with his work to leave it for long, even of a Sunday. Seated on a box in the warm sun, gazing up at the towering mass of some great ship undergoing repair, he would point out and explain to Con the beauty and efficiency of its elaborate network of rigging. And Con, being a smart young man, soon began to grasp the functions of all the myriad spars, shrouds, stays, braces, blocks, tackles, chains, rods, eye bolts, turnbuckles, and the 100 other things that went into the rigging of a ship. There he is looking at the shipyard. Or Martin might wave to the newly fashioned Brooklyn Bridge, whose huge towers dominated the whole skyline. One of the wonders of the world, he would declaim, and rightly so indeed, a masterpiece of rigging that beautiful as any ship. He pointed out to Con how each graceful cable supported its true share of the tremendous weight, how each was proportioned to do its own task exactly, not a strand or a pound too much or too little. Many times they walked the broad promenade to Brooklyn and back while Martin explained the function of each cable, suspender, bridle, and girder. He showed how the great supporting cables ran over huge iron saddles at the tower tops, free to slide slightly as the long structure swelled or shrank from broiling sun or icy blast. "'Twere not for that," he exclaimed, "they'd have them towers tore down like the walls of Jericho in a month's time. As it is, she's strong as a mountain range, strong but supple. Suppleness does it. The way she'll be standing handsome and useful when we're in our graves and our children and their children after them." Occasionally, too, they would take a walk along First Avenue or the Bowery to watch the throng of Sunday strollers and the passing stream of carriages and cyclists. The new low-wheeled safeties were all the rage now, but a few elderly conservatives still stuck to the old-fashioned high-wheeled bicycles. "There you are, Con, me lad," laughed Martin, waving at an unusually tall one. "I'm surprised you've not acquired one of them contraptions, and you the dude you're getting to be. It would make your aunt's prophecy come true, surely, for there's no bigger wheel in the world that is, for the purpose of riding." "Thanks, no," Con grinned. "There's easier ways of breaking your neck than taken a header off one of them. Martin's shrewd little eyes settled on Con closely. And what about that grand fortune your aunt read you? He asked. Do you think you've gone far enough to the west now? Sure you're doing well here, and you're with a wealthy uncle, fair panting for you to become his partner, with a fine job and two pretty and adoring cousins hanging on your every word and glance. Or have you still got your mind tied to the evening star? I don't know. I don't know at all, Con answered slowly, his forehead all puckered with thinking. I've got everything here anyone ought to want, I guess. More than I deserve, likely. But somehow, I don't know. What with the crowds and the noise and the dirt and the hurry and all, it's hard to think. But Martin, I don't want to be spending all the days of my life building sewers and laying pavements. It's a little more exciting than cutting peat in old Gallagher's bog, and not as pleasant. There anyway, you could breathe the air and sometimes see and hear a wee bird and him singing, or perhaps a rabbit poking his head at you through a hedge. And you could watch the sun sinking into the decent, clean ocean and not being smothered in a cloud of dirty chimney smoke. Martin Brennan chuckled understandingly. Not that I hold anything against sewers and pavements, mind you, he said. They have their uses. But for you to be building them doesn't seem becoming to the grandness of your aunt's prophecy. Go west, young man, as Horace Greeley was saying, or was it Henry Ward Beecher? Go west and grow up with the country. Follow your fortune, lad. There's greater things to be done than laying sidewalks for mean little people to be scuffing their dirty boots on. Was there the likes of a respectable shipyard to the west of here, I'd be following you, the Evening Star myself. It was that very evening, halfway through Sunday night supper, that Uncle Patrick came roaring in out of the west. Uncle Patrick, this is chapter 4. Uncle Patrick was big. Everything about him was big. Jutting beak of a nose, high arched chest, huge corded, powerful hands. He'd a neck like a sea lion and a voice that carried like the fog siren on Kill to Point. His square-cut red beard was thick as a mattress. His laugh rattled the supper dishes, but his tread, strange enough, was light and as sure as a cat's. He embraced Aunt Cecilia and then Stella and Agnes, swinging them clear off the floor, shook his brother by the shoulders, and then turned to greet Con. So this is Mary Kate's boy, he shouted. Cornelius Terence Kilroy. He has the giblin hair and eyes, indeed, but the small size of him must be Kilroy. And the white color. Mike, have you been keeping him buried in one of your manholes, the way he has the pallor of a bleached oyster on him? He's been doing a bit of office work lately, Uncle Michael said, and very well, too. Office work? Patrick snorted. Offices are for sniveling clerks and mice and cobwebs. Show me your hands, lad. Con held out his hands, palms up, feeling a little ashamed of their white softness. All the traces of peat cutting had long since disappeared. Only last week he had been rather pleased when Agnes had commented favorably on their genteel appearance. And now he was ashamed. Humph, Uncle Patrick snorted. The hands of a peony player. You wouldn't have been doing a bit of embroidery now, would you? I can handle a sleighing with the best, Con answered, coloring. My palms may be a bit soft at the moment, but my knuckles are hard enough. Uncle Patrick gave a great roar of laughter and clapped him on the shoulder. All right, my little fighting cock, he cried. There speaks the Giblin blood, but we'll not be proving it now. Uncle Michael poured himself another cup of tea and motioned Aunt Cecilia and the girls to leave. Now, Patrick, he said, don't be upsetting the lad and filling his head with notions. He's doing well here where he is. Very well. I'm proud of him. He's a wonderful fine opportunity with me in a well-established business. He's no call to be blistering his hands with pick or shovel or roaming the wild country, leaping from one job to another. Opportunity, is it? Uncle Patrick roared. Opportunity? Is it opportunity, you call it, to be making a pasty office clerk of him, pouring in ledgers and dickering over the price of barrow loads of bricks, or scratching ditches in your dirty city streets like a lapdog trying to bury a bone when there's men's work crying to be done? Uncle Michael answered heatedly. There's as much glory in a well-built sewer, Pat Giblin, as any of your grand tunnels or bridges. I'll not have the lad snatched away from us to go following your harebrained engineer, whatever his name is, from hither to yon. For your information, Uncle Patrick shouted, the name is Ferris, George Washington Gale Ferris. Also, for your information, He's the most brilliant young engineer walking the earth today, the way he'd make your Thomas A. Edisons and your Alexander Graham Bells look like petty tinkerers. Only 12 years out of college, and he has as great a knowledge of the ways of iron and steel as the god Vulcan himself. He can throw a steel bridge across a raging river as easy as you could knock together a plank walk across one of your two-penny sewers trenches. Yes, and be planning out a tunnel or a railroad line in his head while doing it. 'Tis a wonderful thing to be associating with such a genius, and it's the proudest honor ever happened to a Giblin to be called his good right hand, which is the way he mentions me. Moreover, went on Uncle Patrick, pacing the floor, when his present project is completed, it will be the century's greatest wonder, and his name will be on the lips of the world from here to Timbuktu. Will it so? Uncle Michael said sarcastically. And what is this monstrous world's wonder, if I may ask? You may ask and not learn, his brother answered. I'm not free to tell at the moment. And what is the good right hand of this great genius doing in New York? How can the poor man manage to lace his boots without you and him in the wilds of the West somewhere? I'm in New York on business for him, said Uncle Patrick, chiefly to pick up a few good men, riggers, if I can find them, real men with the heart to do their work at dizzying heights and eat their lunches sitting on a girder no bigger than your two hands with nothing below them but the empty air and maybe a stray seagull or two. I'd hopes that the lad here might crave a job with a bit of adventure to it, but I'm feared he hasn't the heart. He has the sense, Uncle Michael began, but Con pushed past him and faced the red-bearded giant. His face was pale now, his fists tightly clenched. I have the heart for any job any man can do, Uncle Patrick, he said quietly. And if I hadn't promised Father Riley to honor my elders, I'd tell you in stronger words. What's more, I've sat at dizzy heights and smoked a pipe with my friend Martin Brennan, the rigger on the cross trees of many a tall masted ship, and thought no more of it than I'd be sitting on a bench in Central Park feeding the squirrels. Uncle Patrick clapped his nephew on the shoulder with mighty hands. I thought I'd strike a spark at the old Giblin in you, he laughed. But what's this about a friend as a rigger? That's what I'm looking for. Does he know his work? Where can I find him? He's the best, I understand, Con answered. 5 years master rigger in the Belfast yards. A wee little man, crooked from a fall, but quick as a monkey, and hands on him can handle steel cable like an old lady with her knitting. But you be wasting your time, he added. He's choosy as to who he works for. Now, laddie, Uncle Patrick chuckled, I'm no ogre. You'll find I bark worse than I bite. Whereat does the little man work? Webb's shipyard on the East River, Con said. But don't be telling him I sent you. We're good friends, and I'd not have him thinking ill of me. He'll thank you from the bottom of his heart, Uncle Patrick laughed, when he hears what I'm offering him. I'll have him tomorrow. And now, what about you? Are you of mind to go west with us to a real job with glory to it? Or are you for becoming a soft-handed office clerk and seeing the world from a drainage ditch? I'm beholden to Uncle Michael for fetching me here across the sea, Con answered, and for treating me like a son of his own, and to Aunt Cecilia and the girls for being mother and sisters to me. But you're beholden to no one, Uncle Michael interrupted sadly. You've earned back your passage many times. Any little things we've done for you are out of our love for you as a son, but like any son, you've got a right to a free choice. You're young, and your heart's crying for adventures, and I'd not be standing in your way, however you choose. When I was a lad of 12, Con said slowly, Aunt Honora read my fortune in the tea leaves, and this was the way of it. Your fortune lies to the west, lad, she said. Keep your face to the sunset and follow the evening star, and one day you'll ride the greatest wheel in all the world. Uncle Patrick looked thunderstruck. His chin dropped. He stared at Con with wondering eyes. What is that you're saying? He finally asked. That last part? Follow the evening star, Con repeated, and one day you'll ride the greatest wheel in all the world. It is a miracle, surely, Uncle Patrick said in an awed voice. A wonder, indeed. 6 years ago, and her on the other side of the world, to be foretelling the future as clear as any soothsayer of the olden days or the prophets of Holy Writ. An old woman's notion that makes no sense, Uncle Michael said. Where is the wonder in it? I shouldn't tell you, but I must, Uncle Patrick answered solemnly, and I'll trust you keep it to yourself for the now. The wonder in it is this. Follow the evening star and you come to Chicago. And in Chicago, at this moment, my boss, Mr. George Washington Gale Ferris, is setting out to build the greatest wheel in all the world.